life of a pirate. The wind rushing through the sails, the smell of salt water, and the unforgiving waves that you need to brace in order to partake in adventures beyond your normal comprehension. Maybe you set out to magical locales in the search for treasures. Maybe you're going to become a prick and plunder other pirates or just innocent souls for their booty, on the quest to become one of the most feared and notorious pirates in the world.
Or maybe you do it nowadays because modern video games are a ripoff in the first place.
Being a pirate is probably one of the most interesting things when it comes down to how it can be adapted into the world of fiction. We've seen a multitude of stories told with this premise in many different ways, from literature such as the original Treasure Island being published all the way back in 1883 by author Robert Louis Stevenson, to modern day film with Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean. Hell, if you're a musical connoisseur, much like yours truly, you partake in the elegant tunes of listening to sea shanties sang by Ailstorm. But if you're a person living in the modern day, then maybe the best place to go on these swashbuckling adventures is through the niche hobby that not a lot of people partake in, and that is through video games. Whether you want to experience a comedic pirate story through LucasArts' Monkey Island series, or take to land or sea killing off foes in something like Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, or maybe just vomit your lungs out and get shot at through a cannon with a bunch of friends in Sea of Thieves. The video game world is in no short supply of ways that you can take part in your very own pirate adventure, and much like a lot of different forms of media, not all of which that is consumed is going to be very pleasant. And that brings us to today's game, Skull and Bones. Yes, if you've been an avid player of video games for the longest amount of time, I'm pretty sure that you've known about this ancient relic of history long before its official release all the way back in February. Developed by Ubisoft Singapore and published by... well, take a guess. Skull and Bones is a pirate game where you take to the seas, playing a slurry of quick-time events, walking around bland and dead islands, and not this kind of dead island, this was actually pretty good, and take part in boring naval battles with pretty much nothing going on in between all of that. Oh, and it's a live service game, because history, except for you, my love, has genuinely proven that this is a moniker that has never had any flops whatsoever. Lovely. This is a game that seemingly went through development hell, finally released, and wouldn't you know it, it pretty much got panned by both players and critics alike. But why is that? This is the gaming industry's first quadruple A game after all. So what went wrong? Well, ladies and gentlemen, after playing around 5 hours of this game, I'm here today to bring you my take on Ubisoft's latest endeavor into the live service moniker. And I'm here to tell you why I think that Skull and Bones failed. So first and foremost, since this game has been in development for quite some time, I only feel that it's right that I give you all a little bit of a rundown about how this game went from concept to release. And that all starts all the way back in 2013. Yes, it's hard to believe that 2013 was over 10 years ago. 11, in fact. It was the year I had just started high school. Let's Play videos were all still the rage on YouTube. The game that Rockstar would milk for the past decade finally released, and it would be the start of, at the time, the next generation of consoles with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. But despite the release of the new hardware, this was still around the time the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were still going strong, with games like the Tomb Raider reboot, The Last of Us, Metal Gear Rising, and all sorts of different games. But one game that made the jump to the next generation of consoles, but was still very much at home with the last gen, was hailed as one of the best games that released that year, and is held in high regards as one of the best games in its franchise, and that was Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Yes, this fourth installment in the Assassin's Creed franchise is what me and many people would consider to be the best games in the entire series. It gave us one of the most beloved protagonists since Ezio and Edward Kenway. It perfected the parkour and combat style that Assassin's Creed was best known for, and aside from us just being able to explore these massive islands with tons of different stuff to collect in them, and just take in their amazing architecture and atmosphere and beauty that Ubisoft was no doubt the kings for at this point with Assassin's Creed, but now we were able to live out our swashbuckling fantasies by taking to the seas in our ship named the Jackdaw, and either go from one island to the other, make friends with other seafarers, or do a little spot of fishing. Now, there were many pirate games released throughout the years, but there was nothing quite like Assassin's Creed 4 at the time.
And if I'm being completely honest here, there isn't really anything quite like it nowadays.
Now, upon the game's release, one of the most praised features was, of course, the ship gameplay, both in its exploration as well as its combat. And I will admit, besides the normal on-foot combat and exploration Assassin's Creed was best known for at the time, I will say that I too really enjoyed going out of my way to ruin someone else's day by sending a giant metal ball through the sides of their ships and watching the crew hopelessly float out to sea. There was enough depth in this one gameplay style alone that was enough to make its own game out of. And that seems to be also what Ubisoft was thinking at the time. Enter the earliest phases of Skull and Bones development, a game that originally was just meant to be an expansion to Assassin's Creed 4, but then later wanted to be turned into its own MMO entity known as Black Flag Infinite, and then later it was decided to make the game into its own IP. According to Wikipedia, the reasoning behind it spinning off into its own intellectual property away from the Assassin's Creed brand was because of the game's technology becoming too outdated. Now, I genuinely want you to put a pin in that little comment, because as we'll see later on in the video, the irony in that statement is almost enough to create its own constellation. And after a bunch of direction changes, as well as $200 million out of Ubisoft's pocket, the game finally got revealed at E3 2017 with this cinematic trailer. And yeah, it looks like a pirate game. There's water, there's ships, there's a woman apparently drowning, and the cameraman doesn't seem all too interested in helping her. There's cannons firing, and then there's a skull and crossbones with the game's name on a flag. Skull and Bones. Yippee, I guess. Looking at this trailer in hindsight, I guess around the time this was enough to get people hyped, a brand new pirate multiplayer game by the same developers that brought us Assassin's Creed Black Flag 4 years ago. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? And hey, as much as I'm making fun of the cinematic trailer, at the very least Ubisoft showed off the gameplay of the game, and yeah, it looks like what people were wanting. It's the exact same naval combat we've come to know and love, except it's just now placed in a multiplayer setting. The graphics looked beautiful, everything in terms of its presentation and gameplay was on par from what we come to expect from Ubisoft, and the game itself genuinely looked pretty fun. And judging on what people had to say about the game after being able to play it during E3, it seemed that people genuinely had a positive experience. It started to seem that everything was looking up for the spiritual successor to one of 2013's best games. And the game was slated for a release date in 2018, but then, as we all know, that wouldn't end up being the case. The game was then delayed to 2019, and then even later to 2020. Everyone's favorite year. And according to Wikipedia, on a call with investors in October of 2019, the game was confirmed to have been delayed even further back to 2021 or 2022. And as we all know, when a game gets pushed back so many times, usually something behind the scenes was going on, and it would seem that this was the case. Apparently, in 2020, it was revealed that a new vision for the game had emerged, which was a result of the numerous delays. Whatever the hell said vision was can only be speculated at this point, but I have a few theories that I like to bring up. I need to take over the mantle from MatPat somehow, right? Now, to get the obvious out of the way, since this vision, like they were visited by some sort of force ghost, came to them around 2020, it's here where I think the choice was made to take the game from your bog standard PvP game to the live service moniker that we know it now for today. And thanks to the success of live service games at the time, like Fortnite, Apex Legends, and I don't know, fucking Marvel's Avengers, I think that those games were partially influential to what direction Skull and Bones will be heading into in the future. And also, since this happened in 2020, this was also around the time that the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S was released, so maybe they saw much higher potential for the game with the newly released hardware, and were probably now more able to deliver a better experience with the more powerful consoles they now had access to. Now, like I said, these are all primarily just theories, but if what I've said is true, and if anyone can confirm this to me, then I find it quite funny how one of those decisions with the newer hardware would be beneficial to the game, whereas the choice to make it a live service game would inevitably be detrimental to it. But regardless, in 2021, Ubisoft said, lol, get fucked, we're pushing the game back to 2022 or 2023. They didn't even seem to know themselves, and in 2022, the game was delayed yet again to 2023. And then after releasing a closed beta of the game in August of 2023, at the Game Awards the exact same year, the game finally set the release date to February 16th, 2024, releasing it on the Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC for a whopping $70. Wow. Now, I mean, we've already long since jumped into the realm of modern AAA games costing $70, but for a live service game? That price seems incredibly steep. But the reason for Ubisoft's justification for this price is quite interesting to say the least. It's the first quadruple A game. Okay. I didn't know Peter Molyneux worked at Ubisoft now. And after 10 years of development, $200 million spent on this precious little project of theirs, Ubisoft even reported that the game isn't expected to break even. Wow. I just love the juxtaposition to this being one of the first quadruple A games to something that they don't even expect to sell well. What the fuck? Now, after doing a little bit more research, I found this article by Game World Observer that reports that Skull and Bones attracted just 850,000 players in its first week. So if we were to take that amount and multiply that with the $70 price tag, that would mean in the first week the game made around $59.5 million. Fuck me. So that's around a $140.5 million loss. And I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to figure out that this isn't a piss puddle amount of money that this project lost them.
Now, this article did come out all the way back in February when the game was still new, so I don't exactly know how the game's doing nowadays, but still, that is one tremendous L for Ubisoft.
It even got so bad to the point where they were offering people a close to 10-hour-long trial of the game to see if they couldn't win over some new players. But after the game's release, journalists were not so very nice to the game, YouTubers of all shapes and sizes ripped into the game, and it would seem that alongside games like Payday 3, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, and less notably PlayStation's Foam Stars, the choice to stick to the live service moniker would inevitably be this game's downfall. But after all that was said and done, where do I come into the picture with all of this? Well, allow me to take you all to the end of April and how I was finally able to give this train wreck a go for myself. Now, much like Payday 3, I was in pretty much the same boat, no pun intended, with Skull and Bones. I was extremely happy for fans of Assassin's Creed 4 who are now able to re-experience all of that sweet naval combat on modern consoles with a bunch of friends. But me, I was never really too into the idea of spending my life savings on a game I was going to probably play for only like a week and never touch again. No, I was too busy playing good games. But after finishing Jedi Survivor, my new favorite Star Wars game by the way, go ahead and play it, it's on Game Pass right now, I was curious to read up upon the current controversy happening with Star Wars Outlaws. And I don't know exactly how I ended up getting to this point, but I then read something about Ubisoft Plus. Now, whether or not it was because I saw that Outlaws was coming to the service, or if it was one of those discounts you can get if you were subscribed, but that did instantly catch my attention. For the longest time, I always knew about Ubisoft Plus, but I never really paid it any mind. I mean, I already had PlayStation Plus and Game Pass. So why would I need to add this to the extensive list of services I use when a good amount of Ubisoft games were already available on those services? But it wasn't until I decided to investigate the service and see what I could get that my jaw hit the floor. I was actually able to play Skull and Bones and a plethora of other Ubisoft games I've been interested in just by having this service. So after some careful consideration, I caved in and bought a 1-month subscription to the service. And after playing some actual good games like Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora and Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, my small YouTuber brain was all set on that sexy hot mess of a quadruple A game. And after putting in around 5 hours of my time, I can say without a doubt, yep, game sucks. But it wouldn't be good for my viewer attention and potential ad revenue if I had only left you with just that little nugget of information, so allow me to share with you my experience on Ubisoft's live service pirate adventure. So after the game finished downloading, I was absolutely through the roof with excitement. Not because I had any high hopes for this game actually being good, but more so because I just wanted to see how bad things could actually get. So after connecting to the game servers, accompanied by this excellent wallpaper engine piece of art, we dick around with the settings, get this pretty intro cinematic that I skipped because I do not give a flying fuck, and then we are finally allowed to set sail in our very own pirate ship, surrounded by people who I think it's safe to say didn't make it. So over here we're able to get accustomed with our ship as well as the game's controls, and nothing much else. What am I meant to do here? There's no objective marker. I can only really fire at the ships that don't stand a chance of fighting back. So what exactly am I supposed to do in this spot? And no joke, I was dicking around in the waters firing at these wooden carcasses, not having a single clue what to do for close to 5 minutes. What an amazing way to start off your game. Until finally we get attacked by another fleet so I could finally show off my piracy skills. After another 5 minutes of battling this fleet, not very sure if what I'm doing is really doing anything to them, we finally get bombarded and our ship sank. Sad, I guess. Now, can I just quickly acknowledge the elephant in the room here real quick? What the fuck was that intro? I wasn't so lost in what I was supposed to do in the intro of a video game since the first time I played the biker tri-hump simulator. This entire opening goes on for close to 10 minutes. The first 5 without nothing happening, and the last 5 having shit going on, but makes it feel like it's just getting dragged out by just having us constantly bombard endless amounts of pirate ships until the game decides that you played enough. That already wasn't a very good sign, but I want you to put a pin in this part of the game because what happens here in this intro will be more relevant much later on. After one loading screen later, we see the wreckage of our ship and our character floating on this wooden plank. We finish creating our character and then we get rescued by these lovely chaps. We then take control of this little ship and take it over to this teensy island over here where we get to see the locals. But now I just want to bring something to your attention here real quick. This game looks like shit. Yes, in performance mode, the game at the very least runs at a consistent 60 frames per second on the Series S where I was playing this. But when you switch that over to graphics mode, you lose the performance and the game itself doesn't really look all that much better anyway. You're still of the same scene on both modes. And yes, there's a slight increase to the quality, but overall, this game doesn't really look good. Fuck, this might have been slightly acceptable had it just been limited to how the NPCs look, because we don't need to give them all that much detail. But look at your main character. His beard looks like if we tried to make bum fluff out of cow shit. Remember a while ago when I told you to put a pin in the hole? The engine that they originally were developing this game on was outdated, and I thought that that was very ironic? This is what I was talking about. This game, which is 2 generations above Assassin's Creed 4 by the way, looks like absolute garbage in comparison. Exploring the Great Blue Sea and all of the different islands themselves, they just look bad. And this is supposed to be a quadruple A game. I just needed to remind you all that. Whatever, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here. After arriving on this island, we head over to this guy over here and get a mission from him where we need to find stuff near the ship's wreckage. We then do so, killing an innocent shark in the process. Then we deliver him the goods. After doing that, we get another mission where we now have to find something on the wreckage of the ship itself. We play one Skyrim lockpicking level minigame, and then yay, today, we get to break into the ship. We grab a map off of this guy who clearly doesn't seem to need it anymore, and then we set sail into the game's primary hub area, St. Anne. So after that absolutely riveting tutorial, I swear this rivals the intro to The Last of Us. What is the actual end goal to achieve in Skull and Bones? Well, you're trying to be the most piratey out of all pirates, you see. So you need to take a shit ton of contracts in order to increase your infamy. And according to the game, infamy tracks your standing and influence within the pirate community. And that new services and contracts will become available to you as you raise said infamy. And then, there you go. Have fun, little old pirate. So yeah, after 28 minutes, the game finally properly starts. As to where we can finally start exploring our main hub, take on missions, and actually start buying stuff we're going to need to finish objectives. So the main loop goes as follows. You run up to either one of the shopkeepers or at this bounty board to select a contract. You then need to go out to any of the locations on the map that has what you need to finish the mission. Run back to whomever gave you the mission and then reap the rewards. It's standard. These contracts can go as followed. You either need to collect certain materials, either by buying them, collecting them in the game world, or getting them the fun way. The taking out of priority targets, you know the drill. And, as you can expect, doing this will require you to set sail out into the open sea where you have your ship, your crew, your speedometer, your health, your compass, your tax file, and then go out to get your missions done. And our first major mission is to get ourselves a proper ship, because I don't think this little dinghy where Leon fought the Del Lago is gonna do much if we get an entire brigade on our asses, so I think any advantage we can get would be very much appreciated. So after collecting all the materials we need in order to build our ship, this is where the main meat of the game properly begins. After getting our ship, here we now have access to our menu where we can manage everything from our ship's cargo to what ships we want to take out on us into the waters, managing of the ship itself, if we want to repair the ship, and whether or not we want to have the PvP flag on or off. The one menu where you will no doubt be spending most of your time though is in the ship management screen, because it's here where we can do things like equipping it with weapons, armor, furniture, cosmetics, and even give it a name. That's actually pretty cool. I've always wanted to be the captain of the SS Long, so let me... Profanity detected. Was the term not supposed to be, I swear like a sailor? This game does not understand its target audience. Whatever, after we're done with all of that, the true sailing can now commence. And yes, we are definitely a ship on the water. Whilst we have control of the ship, we can do a few things. We can look through our spyglass in order to tag ships and settlements to see their level and what materials they have on board, as well as what faction they belong to. We can switch the camera between first person, normal third person, and the crow's nest. We can brace the attacks from enemy ships so we can take less damage. We can use a repair kit at any time when we have one so we can repair our ship on the fly, and we can do some damage. Yes, much like Assassin's Creed 4 before it, we have got a naval combat system to work with here, and if you've played Assassin's Creed 4, then you'll be right at home with Skull and Bones. What weapons you'll end up using is entirely dependent on what direction the ship is facing. So obviously, if your Pinocchio nose-size front of the ship is facing towards the enemies, you'll fire off the front weapons. If you are on either the left or right side of the ship, or if you want to get all boat technical with me, the starboard and the port side of the boat, you'll fire off your side cannons. And when you look behind you, you can fire whatever you have equipped at the back, so it's pretty much the same as Assassin's Creed 4. You do have different kinds of weapons that you can buy and equip to your ship, but I didn't do that. Hell, when you attack a ship and weaken it enough, you'll be able to board it. Put another pin in that, because we'll get to this later. As for the actual ship traversal, I'd say it's pretty much serviceable, but I don't know if I just completely suck, or if they tried to give your ships an actual weighty feel to it, but unless you're facing your boat so that it travels along with the wind, it feels kind of sluggish and hard to control even at lower speeds, which can really eat at you when you're trying to position yourself just right when you're engaged in combat, or when you're just trying to get from one place to another. It didn't feel particularly fun to control. It's like at a supermarket when you get that one cart that has a fucked wheel. I found playing with the now was a lot more fun if I'm being completely honest. Yes, the literal fucking fishing boat felt a lot better to control than this clunky big-ass ship. So besides the whole main gameplay style, that being the ship exploration and naval combat, there is another one, that being the on-foot sections. Whenever you go back to your main hub of St. Anne or any other settlement you're able to dock at, it's usually over here where you're then able to buy or sell materials or weapons, take on new contracts so you can increase your infamy, or do other funny stuff like cook food and get your pirate skibbity riz on. And on some islands you even get these pirate bonfires that give you certain buffs like increasing your crew's stamina when you want to go full speed. Because yes, if you go full speed in this game, that does drain your crew's stamina, but whenever they get the shit kicked out of them by oncoming cannonball fire, their fatigue seems to vanish. And if you've heard what I've just said, then I'm so proud of you. But you may have noticed that I said that you're able to sell and buy stuff for you and your ship. And yes, that's because it wouldn't be a live service, I mean a pirate game, if money wasn't involved. And here in Skull and Bones, there's no exception. So within this game, you have two primary forms of currency. You have silver and you have gold. Silver being the currency you'll be rewarded with after completing contracts and selling stuff, and gold essentially being the thing that will cause real life thievery. But at the very least, gold, to my knowledge, is mainly just spent on cosmetics for you and your ship, so I don't really think that this is something that will extend to you getting extra legendary gear that makes PvP encounters and contracts way easier. But something I'm not a huge fan of in this game is how silver is sometimes handled. So as we all know, or at least I would sure as fuck hope so because this video has been going on for 30 minutes, Skull and Bones is an open world pirate game akin to Assassin's Creed 4. So that extends to the fact that the world size is pretty huge and we aren't exactly flying a NASA X-43 jet, so obviously getting from point A to point B may end up taking some time. So with this being a modern open world game, you'd think that they'd incorporate some sort of fast travel, right? Well then congrats, you're correct. Except in this case, fast travel costs you some of your precious silver, meaning that if you find the act of traveling the oceans pretty tedious and want to get a move on, then you better fork over a couple of your hard-earned pennies to make the journey just a teensy little bit faster. I'm really sorry if you were saving it for something that would actually make the game more fun, but maybe next time, okay? This is kind of ass for the reasons I just stated, because you were probably just stockpiling all that silver to buy some new weapons and other stuff for your ship and crew, but now you gotta spend it all on traveling from one zone to the next because of how slowly you'll probably end up getting there if you chose to travel normally. And adding insult to injury, if the act of taking your cash if you want to get quickly from one spot to another wasn't already bad enough, you can only fast travel if you're docked at specific settlements where you're able to travel on foot. Are you fucking kidding me? So in order to just access the fast travel option so you can make the journey a little less of a pain in the ass, you first need to travel to another designated zone first before you're even able to do that. So at the end of the day, you might as well just take the stupid trip because you might equally be just as far from another settlement you could have used to fast travel to your desired location. This is just bad, dude. I mean, I guess I kind of understand why they do it, because you need to initiate fast travel from this menu at the settlements, and if you were able to do this from wherever you wanted, then it probably would just look silly watching ships pop in and out of view in an instance. But in that case, why not just add like an animation of your ship just getting teleported or some shit? It's not like some mystical stuff wasn't already present in this game. The bonfires with green flames are the biggest evidence to that. It's gotten so bad to the point where every single item I sold and contract I completed, the money wasn't going into anything besides just fast travel costs, and that's pretty fucking stupid. You know you already messed up big time if the one thing that you're gonna be doing for most of the game gets tedious so quickly, and in order to mitigate that, you first need to cough up some of your cash after you've traveled to an area that took up some of your time anyway. I just don't understand this mindset whatsoever. Oh, and since this is a video game after all, So, with combat, there is going to be a small chance that you aren't the video game master you think you are, and you will no doubt from time to time get your shit rocked by the enemy, whether they be AI or other players. And get this, when you die, you have two respawn options, either close to where you died, which of course will cost you silver, or at the dock back at St. Anne. And maybe you might think to yourself that dying might actually get you faster to where you want to go with no costs. Wrong! When you die, which will probably happen to you at least once, when you return to the dock, just like a pirate-themed Souls-like, which actually doesn't sound like a bad idea, somebody write that down and give me all the royalties, you need to go back to where your ship's wreckage is to get your stuff back. But other people can yoink your shit too. So I really hope you weren't carrying any mission important shit on you, because you may have just helped some other dickhead finish their mission instead. Now, I don't have any problem with that at all. It's a pirate game. Of course some other people are gonna try to jack your shit. But couple that with the already monotonous crap I just listed, losing all your shit you spent so long to get, only to fuck up and having it get stolen by someone else, forcing you to possibly need to redo everything. Wrapping your car around a tree sounds more like a fun idea. Moving on from all of that for a little bit though, traveling on land isn't even really that fun to begin with either, because all you can do is walk, run, swing on shortcuts, and interact with stuff and NPCs to buy stuff or to buff your character. This is just beyond boring. It's not really engaging enough to talk to these people. There's nothing really interesting to do when you're on foot, so you're probably only going to be going to these locations when it's absolutely necessary. And why this stings even more so is because of the fact that there's very few settlements you can actually set foot on, because other islands you can interact with only allow you to interact with them for the sake of trading or contracts, or plunder them if you're just as fed up with talking to people as I am. So all the possibilities they could have had for different island variety and different NPCs to make each place look more and more lively is completely lost. Remember, $200 million was spent on this game and they had 10 years to develop it. What the hell is the excuse here? And with all of that stuff out of the way, that brings me to one of the biggest complaints I have with this game, and where I have zero damn clue where all the time, effort, and budget went into this game. The overall game is one of the most boring things I've ever played in my entire life. But the reason why this is the case could have easily been avoided had the game itself just had more time and more effort placed into it. And what I mean by this is thanks to the following. So remember how I mentioned that you can gather materials in one of three ways? Well, like I've mentioned, you can either buy them or steal them off of some poor unsuspecting souls, but you can also gather them if you'd rather work for your stuff. Well, the way how you do this is by playing the exact same timing minigame over and over and over again. Doesn't matter if you're getting wood, getting coconuts, or breaking into a wreckage, it's the same thing over and over again, with this stupid timing minigame being the only thing that gives you any sort of engagement. Can you see why this is a problem? Why can't I just go onto the islands, either alone or with my crew, use the tools I've gathered to help me along this journey, and then have me walk out to these islands to get these materials by hand? You wouldn't in that case need to space them out so far apart and make it a fucking journey to get them. Yeah, if you wanted to encourage more exploration out to sea, then maybe make some materials more common on some islands than others. You get the idea. You then have more of a reason to go out to each of these islands and explore them to find what you're looking for. And, you know, feel like a pirate exploring these uncharted grounds and see more people like NPCs or other players doing the exact same things that you are. But nope. Have fun with this QuickTime event. It's more cost effective because the budget of this game wouldn't allow us to make these worlds feel more lived in. And the biggest offender to all of this, in my opinion, is the fact that when you're able to plunder islands or other ships, there's not even that. When you plunder a ship, press one button, cutscene, loot, sail. When you plunder an island, cutscene, defense, loot, sail. Zero fucking input from you, the player, except for telling your lackeys to go get the money. What lazy bullshit is this? What kind of a pirate are you, the main character, supposed to be? Let me answer that for you real quick. You aren't! And do you want to know what the cherry on top of this absolute joke of a pirate game is? Where all you do is shoot at other hunks of naval wood, walk on islands that have as much depth to them as a fucking kiddie pool, and tap the interaction button to gather literally everything. Do you want to know what is the most fun activity you'll be taking part in this entire pirate game? Fishing. Yes, fishing. Some of the food and the materials that you're able to gather are from fish, sharks, alligators, and hippos. And in order to do that, you actually need to take your little dhow in order to go out there and spearfish these fuckers into extinction. This was the only time I actually had fun gathering materials. And then in that case, fuck the world of piracy. If it's gonna be this huge of a slog, I'd rather live out the rest of my days as a humble little fisherman, because in this game, it's somehow the most fun thing you're able to do. But alas, since this is a little bitch-made ship, it isn't exactly designed to take on the rougher waters, so you can't even explore the entire map with it, which does make sense and all, but you've essentially taken the one thing that I had a lot of fun with this game and snatched it away like it was the Crew 1 out of people's libraries. I was in genuine disbelief. Even now, while I'm writing this script, I can't even begin to come up with a thought as to what Ubisoft was thinking with this game. This game is the equivalent of a lazy cash grab, but one that had so much potential that the devs just never expanded upon in so many ways that they could have. And after spending 5 hours with this game, it just had no sign of improving because I was just doing the same repetitive mission structure with all the stupid fucking issues I've mentioned over and over again. I was just done. I dropped the game and then I moved on to greener pastures. But before I ended up doing that, I had one final middle finger that I wanted to throw at Ubisoft, because what I did next should go to show what Skull of Bones could have and should have been. And for this little comparison section as to what Skull and Bones should have been, I went to two of the most obvious games. And the one thing that I primarily wanted to focus on is how long does it take to grip me. Like I've mentioned, I've played Skull and Bones for 5 hours, and in those 5 hours, I wasn't able to get invested unless I was fishing. But besides that, I just couldn't get gripped. Nothing really hooked me, and every single second I was playing this game, I was thinking of other games I'd much rather spend my time with. And the first game that I decided to take a look at for my little test was the game that this one was inspired by, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. So according to my gameplay, for us to really get anywhere in Skull and Bones, it took me around 57 minutes to get from the intro to getting my first ship so that the main meat of the game could have started, with the first 25 of those minutes being dedicated to that boring ass intro. Compare that to Assassin's Creed 4, where within literal seconds, you're already at a much more visually impressive ship battle with a way more responsive and overall better controlling ship with more variety off the bat with your weapon types and much easier to get into combat. This section starts getting you in the mood and hyped up immediately for the ship combat and the rest of the game, and it only lasts for 2 minutes, then boom, immediately we get introduced to our main character, and then after all of that, we're already swimming to the next island. Yes, you see this, we are actually swimming, this isn't a cutscene, and all of this happens within the first 5 minutes after starting the game. After that, we're on the island, which absolutely looks stunning, by the way, but we're parkouring, chasing after the prick that sunk our ship, kill him ourselves, by the way. Look at this was me, this isn't a cutscene. Steal his shit, and then we go rescue an NPC by taking out the guards either stealthily or head on, which the choice of, by the way, is made by yourself. All of this stuff happened. The ship battle, the swimming, the stealth, the main character introduction, all happened within the first 10 minutes of starting the game. After that, we swim out to our new ship, take control of it, and sail it ourselves out to the bay. Oh, look at that pretty whale! That looks so pretty, and this game looks fantastic 11 years later. And all of this is in the first 13 minutes of the game. After that, we have the Abstergo prologue, where we need to do some walking to get into the role of our character in the real world. Now, this might seem like a little bit of a pace breaker, but that's only until you realize that this section only lasts for 5 minutes, and then we get back into the main game. After all that, we then get acquainted with Havana, see all these NPCs being more lively, the area itself looking so stunning, and actually getting to explore the island and take in its atmosphere, because just look how good this looks. And this is all coming from a game that came out on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, by the way. We then climb a church to get our bearings of the area. We stop a pickpocket, get into a bar fight, tail guards, steal a captain's key to infiltrate a lockup, get into a fight with said guards, shoot mannequins with flintlocks without the thing somehow exploding in our hands because they're flintlocks, stab them because their presence is insulting, and all of that was introduced to us within the first 54 minutes of the game. And look, as we all know, it's Assassin's Creed 4. We all know how great the game is, so I don't think I need to elaborate any further. But I can hear you all saying, John, that's an Assassin's Creed game. Skull and Bones was trying to do its own thing, therefore it shouldn't be compared. Which to that, I'd say, fair enough. So allow me to introduce to you our second contender to prove my point, because if the intent for Skull and Bones was meant to be a full-on pirate simulator, then allow me to present to you all none other than 2018 Sea of Thieves. Yes, a game that had a rough start to its launch, but as time marched forward, it's one of the closest things to a perfect live service pirate game. Within the first minutes of the game starting out, you instantly wake up hungover in a tavern, which we can all relate to, appreciate the game's beautiful art style that holds up incredibly well, grab ourselves some quest, and then instantly, no bullshit, start setting sail ourselves. We need to raise the anchor. We need to set the sail length and angle. We need to become the live ammunition in order to take out enemies. We need to read the map and figure out where those treasures are hiding using the tools provided to us. We need to sail the ship accounting for every single little detail. We need to drop the anchor when we reach our location. We need to find out where this treasure is hiding on this island. We need to dig up the treasure ourselves. We need to go back and sell this shit. We need to not try and get fucked over by evil monsters by either hitting them with our sword or shooting them. Are you starting to see the full fucking picture now? Where Assassin's Creed 4 gives you everything you need to make an awesome action game within the first 50 minutes with a pirate motif, Sea of Thieves literally gives you everything to make a phenomenal pirate game the second that you start it up. And much like Skull and Bones, Sea of Thieves is a live service game, and it's 10 times more fun either alone or with friends. So what in the name of all that is good and gracious is Skull and Bones' excuse? There's close to zero depth. Every mechanic that could have been there is either automated or just dumbed down so that even a fucking toddler can understand it. $200 million. 10 years, a new vision for the game. What the hell went wrong here? I'd say a huge part about all of that is overambition and the game being so overconfident with the quality of your product that you label it as the first quadruple A game ever made, set players' expectations too high, and ultimately let them down upon the game's launch. And judging with how critics and players and the game's own sales numbers indicate, it seems to me that that's why Skull and Bones failed.
So, yeah, it kind of goes without saying that this is really not a game that I recommend you go out of your way to play in any capacity. Literally, a game, 1 second. A game that came out on the Xbox 360 and is widely available on all modern consoles nowadays is way better than the $70 quadruple A pile of shit that Ubisoft shoved down our throats. And also, even if you want a nice online live service pirate game, then just go ahead and play Sea of Thieves. Yeah, you guys may have noticed something. I'm actually back on camera for once because I bought all this gear and I'd be damned if I don't have anything to do with any of it. So I'm trying to hopefully implement skits again in the video, be a little bit more on camera for a few of my commentaries like what I'm doing right now. I just feel like it adds a little bit more, and let me know if you guys like seeing this, if you guys have any ideas for what I could do for skits. Who knows, maybe I'll do some funny stupid shit with that green screen over there, even though it's gloss and it's not gonna work for shit. But any case, I have been John from the channel with the freakishly long name. If you guys liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Special thanks to Patreon member Mr. Aftonboy, and if you guys want to help support the channel in any way, maybe consider becoming a channel member or joining the Patreon. Any support is truly appreciated. But thank you guys all so much once again for watching. I've been John from the channel with a freakishly long name, and I will see you guys in the next video. Now you guys get to see me do it. Goodbye. Love you.